Hello and welcome to this special episode from the OSMOSIS Association community. I'm Margarita Giron and I serve as Community Engagement Lead. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, William Mechler, who serves as Certification Committee Lead. Together, we're diving into an exciting new chapter for our community. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder to our listeners, if you haven't already signed up to be a member of our amazing OSINT community, now is a perfect time. Head over to www.osmosisinstitute.org to join and stay connected with all the incredible resources, events, and opportunities we have to offer. Today, we have the honor of introducing a truly inspiring leader who will guide OSMOSIS Association in 2025. Please join us in welcoming our new president, Ritu Gill. Ritu brings a wealth of experience and vision to our OSINT community, and we can't wait to learn more about her plans, priorities, and her goals for the future. Thank you for being here, Ritu.
Thanks, Margarita. Appreciate that introduction. Thanks, Will. Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear more about what you have planned for this year. Just kind of to get stuff started, many of us have seen you on social media, and many of us don't know much yet about you, but we know that you've taken on the role as president. What inspired you to take on the role of president for OSMOSIS Association?
So that's a great question. It's really a great opportunity to contribute to a thriving and well-developed group. So Osmosis has been around for a while, and I wanted to contribute to something where I've seen it grow and help the community. I also like to see how members have been supported with their learning and their growth. And that's another important part for me. So those were a couple of things that stood out to me. And yeah, I'm excited to be part of this journey.
That's good to hear. That's very inspiring. Just kind of seeing, especially for me as a community member, knowing that you do care that we are supported and that members feel supported in their journeys. As far as your vision for the osmosis community, how do you plan to achieve it? What are your current goals?
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to do. I want to continue to grow the membership and provide value to our members. I want to deliver what our members at the end of the day are asking for, what they want to learn, but also be able to provide that guidance to the do's and don'ts in the OSINT world.
Thank you. I think that is a big role to take on, and thank you for doing that. It sounds like you got a pretty good plan to get that started. Now, what steps are you going to take, or what steps do you plan on taking, to ensure that the osmosis community remains inclusive and accessible to people from all backgrounds? I mean, we're an international organization. Obviously, we've got people from all over the world. What's your plan to include everybody?
Yeah, and that honestly, having something inclusive and accessible to people from all sorts of backgrounds is important to me. And as someone who has mentored others in the OSINT community, I value the concept of OSINT for all, meaning that anyone that is truly interested and curious can learn and apply OSINT, right? Learn OSINT and apply it as well. And to answer your question, how can I achieve this? Keeping that conversation going, keeping it open with that OSINT community, allowing people to reach out and ask questions. So being open, I think that's another important part of it, and one way we can achieve it together.
Thank you. Do you have any plans? And I guess you kind of already answered that, but how do you, because obviously we're an organization from brand new people who've never done anything in OSINT. They just happen to be scrolling the internet and they find the Osmosis Association. And then we've got seasoned experts. I would sit here and go down the list, but there's too many to count. How do you get the brand new OSINTer to be able to talk with the seasoned expert and collaborate and communicate on projects?
Yeah, no, that's another great question. I think, again, part of that will be there are many ways that people can engage. And one of the things I know Margarita already mentioned off the front was, the website, the forum that we have, but also the Discord channel, right? For that user interaction. My goal at the end of the day is to provide members that relevant, timely OSINT content where they can go in and engage with others that might have the same interests, right? Because we know there's so many different parts of OSINT too, right? Some people have interest in geolocation. Some people want to learn about ethics and what that might entail. So I see it as a great space, what we have in Osmosis, a great space to learn and to grow, both from professionals and newcomers. I think it's the idea of being in one area where we can learn from each other. I always tell people that regardless of how many years you have behind you, every day you're going to learn something new. For myself, I've been in the industry for a number of years, and there's always something to learn. And sometimes I learn from people who are subject matter experts. But at the same time, there's times when someone who is new to OSINT has a different perspective, and I'm also learning from them.
It's awesome, and I'll tell you that Margarita is the brainchild behind the Discord channel. Prior to that, we do have our website, obviously, osmosisinstitute.org, where we do have a lot of forums, different chat groups, but the Discord, I think bringing that on has been game-changing with the amount of communication. So thank you, Margarita, for bringing that to the association as well.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, now that you both mentioned it, I think one of the reasons that I thought about Discord was kind of bridging that gap between being a newcomer and being a professional. I know for me personally, when I was a newcomer, I wanted to be able to connect with others, and I just didn't know how to. And I figured if we shared other interests, maybe that could be a way for me to engage with them. Because it could be a little intimidating sometimes, but I definitely want the community to feel like they can come to a safe place, and they can connect with others. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey. We're all united with one purpose, and it's to collaborate together. And like you mentioned, Ritu, learning, you never stop learning. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And one example, actually, I just want to bring that up is Osmosis Con, our 10-year anniversary that was in Vegas this past October. Great space for networking, learning, but I got the opportunity to meet a lot of people that are in the OSINT industry. Some people were just fresh starting out, but having those conversations with those individuals, I was like, wow, this is amazing to see everyone in one room. So I'm excited for our 2026 OSINT conference.
Here we all are. We're all looking forward to it, and I know that there's going to be a whole bunch of events coming up leading up to that. Are there any initiatives or anything in particular that you're really excited to introduce, or maybe you can give us a little sneak peek that you got planned during your tenure?
Yeah, so one thing I'm excited to, set off on the right foot with Career Day, which is going to be coming up soon. So essentially, industry professionals will share their insights that can help those who want to get into the OSINT field. I'm also excited about things like this podcast episode, creating monthly content that gives value to our followers and our membership. Those are some things I'm thinking about, and I do have some ideas, but that's kind of what I have for now. The thing with OSINT is we do have to evolve with it and keep up, but as things happen in the world, we adapt, and that's when some of the things will be planned ahead of time. Well, a lot will be planned ahead of time, and then some of the things will be as we see things happen in the community, that's when we show up and have a voice and make sure we guide our members in the right direction.
Thank you
Sorry,
for
just share
sharing that.
my screen there so you guys get a little glimpse of the Osmosis event coming up.
Yeah, thank you for that, William. As far as talking about, I know we talked about initiatives and just events that we're excited about, but I know a lot of people in the community are usually excited about training and certifications and development. So how will you continue to support training, certifications, and even career development opportunities for our members?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways. So for the certification, keeping the OSC fresh. So I know there's a new date update coming up to the OSC later this year. Will probably could speak to it a little bit more. But also like with the nature of OSINT, we do have to continue to keep up with what's new, what's changed over time. But I hope to provide some webinars and some value training to the membership as well, again, on various topics related to OSINT, you know, and that might coincide with some of the monthly letters that I put out, some of the topics that come up that are going to be of interest.
I'll just add to that real quick. The with the OSC, just like Ritu had said, we do have we are working on updating that. There's a whole committee group of amazing members coming from academia, law enforcement, cybersecurity, just trying to iron out, get a new question bank in there, peer reviewing it. Additionally, there's going to be a study guide that's everyone's asking for, so that's in the works too. But just want to mention that real quick while I had a second, but it's coming. It's coming along great.
Awesome. It's great to hear that. And yeah, no, thanks for that information. I think people are pretty excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know I've been waiting for a study guide so I could push it out. I know, Ritu, you did bring up your letters, and now that you brought them up, I know you recently released a president's letter, I believe, for this month, and in it you talked about something that was very interesting and very vital to our community. So, as far as thinking about being ethical, what are your thoughts on the importance of ethical practices in OSINT, and how will you continue promoting this in the community?
Yeah, no, that's it's a really important. Ethical OSINT is extremely important as a topic. We are only as good as we do for our community and in our community. And I want to set an example for those who are starting fresh in OSINT. You know, these are the rules we abide by. How will we promote this, or how will I promote this? It comes down to communicating with our group, with that OSINT community. It's also about seeing, when you see something, you want to say something. So if I can do something, you know, if I see something unethical, we want to make the community aware of that, and then have that conversation around why we wouldn't want to do something like that. And this could be simply, you know, talking about OSINT for good, what that means. But there will be, you know, there's lots of voices in the OSINT community. We just want to make sure that ethical OSINT is kept at the forefront of things, and I think there's various ways to do that. And yeah, I definitely did cover that topic in my monthly president's letter. Thank you.
Well, and that leads us right into the next question that I have, which, I mean, you kind of already nailed, just as far as keeping the community in some type of having some type of guidance or leadership. It definitely helps out to have that, and to kind of steer, like you said, the newer members that aren't maybe so aware what's okay to use and what's not okay to use when we find it. I mean, there's so much information out there. What do you see that the biggest challenges might be facing OSINT? And other than awareness, what other ways do you think that we can bring this to their attention and help address it with them?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the ethical part of things is huge. That's one of the challenges that we're going to have, because again, the industry is only growing. So we're getting a lot of different people in that realm. But if we even step away from ethics for a second, and we talk about, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, because everybody's talking about the AI landscape. But that is another challenge that the OSINT community is facing currently, and has, you know, continued to face since this has, you know, developed over time. Because now we're seeing things like misinformation, disinformation. Really, it comes down to the ability to decipher what's real, what isn't. And it is, in some instances, getting harder and harder, with some of the audio stuff out there. Some of it is not as sophisticated, but then I've seen some that is quite sophisticated, and I can see it being a challenge because typically AI just continues to get better. So that's a little scary as well. But really being on top of these new tools and techniques is the important part of it. And hopefully, again, I don't know what the next 5 years will look like or anything, but we're taking it step by step. When we see some of the challenges, there are ways that we're able to identify some of this stuff, some of the misinformation, disinformation. These are through some of those OSINT techniques out there. But also, as that rapidly changes, we're just continuing to keep up with the new way to identify this information. And again, help the people that are doing this type of work, whether you're an investigator, you're a researcher, you're an analyst, or so on.
So is there a good baseline, like, for somebody who's first getting into OSINT or somebody who might be hiring OSINTers? Is there any kind of base that you look for or that you think would be a good idea for anybody to have? Dropping a plug here for the OSC.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, I know one. The OSC certification is definitely a good one to have, because it shows that you have something concrete there, right, to show for. So having that under your belt is a great idea. But other things I talk about is, you know, when you're new into this field of work, some of the basics, some of the foundations of what people want to get good at is things like critical thinking, things like analysis, and then of course research skills. How can you get better at some of this, right? Really, you got to challenge yourself to get to that step. There's many different ways to do it. You know, there's articles online about how to get into OSINT, you know, how to get better at OSINT. And I think those things, those blog posts out there. I mean, there's many where you can take a tidbit of it and you can take it as a weekend project and be like, I'm going to learn this weekend. And over time, you will develop your skills, right? It would be only a matter of time.
Practice makes perfect, or practice makes permanent. Doesn't make perfect, but practice makes permanent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's ongoing, right? It's never perfect. We're always learning. You know, we learn from our mistakes. There's things I always try to teach people too. Like when I started out, there's a lot of things I did that I was like, oh, okay, like, but lessons learned why I wouldn't do it that way, or how can I do my job better now? And it's nice to be in that position. But you know, we're all human at the end of the day. We just want to learn from, if you've made a mistake in some way, you just want to be able to learn from that experience and move on.
That brings up another great point. The Osmosis Association does have a great little area where you can practice OSINT in a safe place where you can make all these mistakes. You can make these, I don't know how to do this, and you can reach out to the community and help. And of course, that is the capture the flag. Dropping another plug. And there's actually one coming up here in in February, the 14th. And you can, if you wanted to check that out, you can go to osmosis.ctfd.io. And it'll be a online open source intelligence capture the flag. It's free to join, but it's only available for members. So lots of cool rewards or awards for first, second, and third place. Maybe it's a swag this time. I don't know. We'll see what the president's got to throw out to the members.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, and CTFs, just to be honest with everyone, is just a great hands-on way to get into OSINT, learn from others, learn from the experience. You know, I've done CTFs in the past where I'm like, oh, that was a great learning experience. I'm like, okay, what did I take away from that? What can I do better? So I think that's an excellent plug.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that, William. I know my favorite part is always trying out like new tools. It's always for me awesome. Now I know we talked about like As far as your new role in osmosis, I know we talked about challenges, opportunities. I know we talked about the industry, but what we want to know is a bit more about you, Ritu. So, what was it that drew you into OSA in the first place, and how do you think that journey has shaped your leadership style?
Okay. So, I didn't exactly plan to get into OSINT, but when I worked for the RCMP, which is our federal police in Canada, I started to learn about OSINT and how it was applied in investigations. So I did have the opportunity to sit with some amazing OSINT investigators who had a lot of knowledge. So I got to learn directly from them. They'd been doing this for a while. Again, like my journey, the way I look at it is that we all start somewhere. So if you're keen and you're open to learning, you can do it too. Um, how this impacts my leadership style is I'm open to wherever someone is. So you don't need to come in as a specialist or a SME or an expert, in OSINT. Rather, I embrace beginners who are just learning the ropes. And that's the idea, right? Bringing in those people, inviting them in to know that this is a new way to learn. This is a space to learn. We have great people that are part of the team. So yeah, I think that's hopefully that answers the question there.
Definitely. Thank you for answering my question, Ritu. Maybe many people will recognize you from your tool, Forensic OSINT. Other than Forensic OSINT, what other tool would you consider to be your favorite?
Yeah, no, thanks for giving Forensic OSINT a plug there. Just for the audience, I'll say it's a documentation tool for online investigators that I co-founded. But yeah, your second question, I mean, honestly, there's so many tools out there. I do love Epios. It is pretty awesome, as you guys both know. It's an email search engine. Excellent, provides great results. Yeah, just I have nothing but good things to say about Epios. So that's definitely one of those tools. You can pull up somebody's Google reviews, and sometimes that is quite insightful.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with OSINT Forensics as my favorite tool. But just throwing that out there. Now, as you're probably aware, we do have a large number of veterans, active in active duty military, law enforcement in this OSINT community, specifically members of our organization. Just some advice from them or to them, because we always find ourselves in such a strict role. We've got everything is I don't want to say by the book, everything is so routine and structured. And then when you get out of that environment, you kind of just have you've got your options, you've got your choices. And this is after a career of being told what to do, when to do it. Um, you're now a business owner. What did you find, or what advice would you give to somebody transitioning from a role as either a first responder or veteran into the private sector, or into or out of that world?
Yeah, I mean, there's there's so many different ways you can look at that. Honestly, like I don't know if this is a simple answer, but I would say take all the opportunities to learn, because there's something to learn from each step of the way. I don't have like a top 10 list or anything in my mind right now, but yeah, I really think through experiences is what we learn. And so for me, I'm like, take those opportunities, anything that presents itself. Um, it will be a learning experience, and it could be positive, it could be negative, but it's still an experience, and that builds you up over time. That's kind of some of my lessons overall that I've learned from the various things I've been doing over the years.
Thank you.
Now, I know William mentioned that we do have a lot of military personnel, we do have a lot of first responders, but we also have a lot of young people in our community who are becoming interested in OSINT, or maybe trying to get into some cyber roles as well. I know certifications are huge in the cyber world for sure. And I know that we do have the OSC. That is something that people looking to get into OSINT can take and have it on their resume, and it shows that they that they know like the basics, ethics, and stuff like that. But as somebody that's with your experience and also as a small business owner, like William mentioned, I guess what qualifications would you want to see, maybe you think an employer would be looking for? Um, do you think having a degree is enough? I mean, what is it that they should be kind of aiming for?
Yeah, I think like it really depends on the person. I think some key things, like I kind of go back to those foundations of what I would look for. Um, Typically, if you do have a degree, you've been to school, so you do have some level of research skills. But for me, research skills are really important, and also analysis and critical thinking is really important. So as skill sets, those are important to, brush up on, get better at. That's one part of it. Other things that stick out to me are, the more variety that people have in their experiences, kind of like what I had just mentioned with the last question. I find a variety of roles or tasks that someone has had will give them more like that vast experience. But again, if somebody's new, they may not have that, but there are ways to kind of be a go-getter and like take on some of the challenges. Even, it doesn't have to be a like, oh, okay, I was hired by said company. It could be initiatives you've taken on your own, right? Whether it's joining a CTF over a weekend or on your time off, there's other ways that you can learn and present as well to a future employer, as for example.
So I'm taking that there there's a set standard, but it's different in every scenario. There's not a one fit check the box for every employment opportunity that may present themselves, correct? Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really depends because people do come from all sorts of different backgrounds, and maybe they volunteered somewhere where it supported their research abilities, or maybe they were in it could be, like I said, it could be volunteer, it could have been a job where they were being paid for it as well. But I think it's kind of like the way I look at it is like case by case, like person by person. Uh, to see like what they learned from those jobs as well. Like, what are the takeaways, right? If you volunteered for said agency or organization, what was the takeaway? What do you bring to this new position that you want? Or, because it gets people to think, right? And it's asking the right questions sometimes to get some of those answers.
Speaking of volunteers, I just want to throw out a huge thank you to everybody who's volunteered with the OSMOSIS Association, um, specifically the ones that I've dealt with directly on the certification committee, and then helping out here recently with the capture the flag events. There's been an outpouring of just overwhelming help, which has been uh, it's been phenomenal. And I know that's only two small categories of what the association has to offer, and there's volunteers everywhere. So thank everyone for that who is volunteering. Um, but if you were to have taken, and I know you're still very young, but if you were taking all your wisdom that you've gained along the way in your OSINT journey, everything you've learned, and you got a time machine, let's say, and you happen to come across little Ritu growing up as a little one, and she's just getting into OSINT. She's thinking about it, but she's not really sure. What advice would you give her? I'm talking like an 8-year-old Ritu.
Okay. Yeah, so well before that, before getting into it, actually, honestly, like joining a community, like thinking fast forward, when you're of the age when you're like, okay, I'm gonna get into this. Um, I'm thinking about various things actually as you answer that question. I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking of like, okay, if I'm 8 years old, hold on.
Okay,
Now I'm
we
thinking,
can bump it up to like 15,
We could
16,
say,
20,
or
whatever works for you.
it could be high school read too. That's totally fine as well.
yeah. I know when you said 8, I was like, hold on. I'm like
So
cartoons.
specific.
um yeah yeah, no, I think really it's community. Like for me, like getting in touch with the right community could be the perfect opening to be part of this thing that you want to get into. Um, I think when you surround yourself with certain people and certain people in certain roles, but again, whether it's, I think osmosis is a great example of that, where it kind of sets you up on a path for success. And I feel that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh, okay, knowing some of these things that you wouldn't think of back then. Um, like for me, back when, before I even thought of OSINT, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I got to network with the community. Like it wouldn't even have crossed my mind, but those are really key parts of OSINT. And just the way social media has evolved over time, it's only become more of a thing now where that is a great space for us to be in, and a great time to be here for us to connect and take those opportunities again to learn.
I'm glad
And
that
it's
you
scary.
brought that up, me too. Because I felt like networking for me was a huge part of my journey as well. I am naturally I like to talk to people. I don't have a problem talking to people. So for me, I really use that part of my personality to kind of help me and getting to know more people. And by doing that, I felt like I was able to kind of learn from them, because there's just so much information out there, especially on social media. And so much information that it can be very overwhelming and not knowing what to do, like what certification to take, what class to take, what course to take, like who do you follow? And I think you're correct. Being able to join a community that shares your goals, your values, your passions, your interests, and then using that community to network with people within the community. Um,
Yeah, I don't think people realize how big networking is. It's the key to any cyber role, OSINT, cybersecurity, which is all now becoming a mix of things. But just networking is everything. Um, so thank you for
It
bringing that up. Just it's not always what you know, but sometimes it's who you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we just aren't in that space where we can continue to work in, for some people working in silos, like that's not the way forward. That's not how we can grow or, you know,
Come out of
um
the skiff.
yeah, yeah. So that's just the reality of it. But yeah, it's nice to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well.
Awesome. Um, Once again, we want to thank you for your time, Ritu. We do want to go ahead and kind of just wrap this up. And so just as a way to wrap it up, to anyone who's watching or listening, um, I guess what legacy do you hope to leave as president of this community?
So that's a big question. Simply like I want to set a good, standard in the OSINT community. Um, I want people to have that positive outlook on how we communicate and how we engage together. And I think the last point is again the ethical stance on OSINT. I want to make sure that's kind of put out there and that message is strong. But yeah, those are definitely some long-term goals and some things that I've considered and thought about over time.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know if if you have anything, any last words of advice you want to give to the community, any sneak peeks of anything that's coming, any awesome tricks or tools that you want to share is like I know we already mentioned your favorite, but anything you want to give it to the community members, or before we close.
I would just say really just for those that are learning, whether you like reading a book or listening to a podcast about OSINT, because there's a lot of different ones out there. Make sure you apply what you read or what you listen to or what you hear or any of those things. Because I find not for everyone, but for a lot of people, doing is learning. Like if you actually go apply something or you try a technique or, you write something down, it might make more sense. It might stick with you But for me, myself, like anytime I've read about a technique, rather than just reading about it or reading a blog post about something, I will go try to, try my version of it or try to apply it in maybe what I'm currently working on, right? So yeah, I think that's a little tidbit there for everyone.
Thank you so much for your time again, Ritu. Thank you, William, for joining us. And thank you for watching.
Thank you guys for having me here, and I appreciate everybody watching as well. Yeah, it was truly great. Thank you so much for your time.